Hi, welcome back to Mountain Gym Card Collectibles. I hope you're having a great day. So, I've noticed some chatter online that kind of highlights a growing divide between current age of sports card investors and sports card collectors. And a lot of it kind of feels like gaslighting, like we're all part of the same team. But really, I really don't feel like I'm part of the same team as today's hobby. All right. Um, and that has to do with the fact that, you know, card collecting, buying sports cards has always more or less been affordable. But more often than not, I just feel like I'm getting priced out of the hobby in a lot of shapes and forms, to say the least. So I found a few posts on X that I'll cover. And if anything, these posts kind of highlight this growing divide in the hobby. So this one came 16 hours ago. It comes from Ty Wilson. The hobby is too corporate now. Post / videos always explode during National Week. It's all about the money. The real collectors are gone. This isn't the hobby I grew up with. I just don't buy it. Collectors, investors, dealers, flippers. Most of us are all four at different times. If your favorite card doubled in value overnight, you'd be happy. If you say you win it, you're lying to yourself. If I offered you $1,000 for a card worth $100, almost everyone would sell it, even the people who claim they don't care about the money. Let's stop pretending. We're operating in different universes. The hobby works because it's a marketplace. Kids ripping wax, collectors chasing childhood memories, dealers making a living, investors taking risks, people buying raw, people grading PSA 10s, people collecting T206s, people chasing tomorrow's rookie. It all belongs. The magic of this hobby isn't that nobody cares about value. The magic is that everyone has a different reason for being here, and somehow it all works together. Finally, the people complaining that money ruined the hobby usually have a collection they never sell until the offer gets high enough. I think what this statement does is it romanticizes our current age of sports cards. It makes it into this idea that we're all, the same sort of people. But, like in my previous episode where I talked about how we're dealing with a card cult that typically is in the upper Midwest, the Northeast. They all bend the knee to, Michael Rubin, Topps Fanatics. They all chase the same big name athlete. It's hard not to see it as a cult, especially when you don't live in that region. You don't go to all the shows, the Ship Shawana show that we get, brainwashed with, and all these other shows. And honestly, I could care less about that stuff. What I would like is a hobby that's affordable. And we just keep getting gaslit on, oh, this is such a great time, blah, blah, blah. And what I'm kind of catching on is more and more people aren't buying it. I know people are leaving the hobby for a lot of reasons, but I think this is one of the main reasons, is really just this inability, to deal with the fact that you just have a lot of collectors who have been priced out of the hobby, and this has been going on since the 90s. So our first comment says the cost of buying card products has gone up tremendously at every single level, while the quality of the product and the quantity of packs and cards has gone down at the same time. Access to said products has also shifted to a much more exclusive avenue. You forgot to address this. Was that intentional? Yeah, he doesn't really talk about breaking companies, breakers. And that's really the issue I have with a lot of the people in our hobby, is they like to romanticize it, but it's really hard to polish a turd. You know what I mean? It's still a turd at the end of the day. Let's see what he replies. You can walk into a Target at Walmart right now and buy nearly every retail product. Good luck with that, if they have any. In addition, if you want, you can go to a hobby shop and buy every hobby product. Good luck with that because they're really expensive. Accessibility is not a problem. It is because people don't have a lot of cash. In addition, the quality of products is better now than it's ever been. You just don't want to pay higher prices. Well, I'd also love to pay 75 cents for a gallon of gasoline like it was growing up. Well, once again, I mean, this person, I don't know if they're gaslighting themselves, but, gas where I'm at's almost $5 a gallon. I can barely get anywhere, because I have, a truck that drinks a lot of gas. Romanticizing a hobby that's really only meant for, braking companies and people who have a lot of cash, and pretending that, it's a hobby where everyone gets to, step up to the same trough, to me, just reeks of what's wrong with this hobby. It's kind of like dealing with a politician, a politician always comes into office. They always pretend that they're going to work for the people, but more often than not, they just work for their own agenda. And that's what I see in the world of sports cards is a lot of people who pump their own agenda and pretend that it's not their agenda, Here's one. I totally agree. When I collected as a kid, I had the flea market and one card shop downtown. I never sold a card and only traded with local friends. Today, I can sell a card from someone in another country at any time of the day. The hobby is worldwide. Yeah, I don't know. I would prefer to have it small, and I just prefer to be trading with my friends than dealing with the type of people who are currently in the hobby. A lot of these people who are currently in the hobby, I mean, they feel like crypto bros who hopped from crypto into sports cards. And they're doing the same sort of stuff, okay? And, if this was a hobby that you could afford and you've been priced out by these type of individuals who like to gaslight us, yeah, I'm completely with you. I'm exhausted, And, I've seen some other videos where people are talking about the fact that, 5, 10, 15 years from now, you're more than likely going to see a lot fewer people in the hobby. And that's because, the sports leagues really don't care about people like us. Tots fanatics, they really don't care about people like us. And honestly, there's a lot of people out there that really do care about people like us. But here's the thing is, eventually, when you're priced out of a hobby, you'll just wake up and go do your own thing, go live your life. You won't even think twice about looking back on this type of stuff. And why is that? Because it's a country club. It's only meant for a certain few, And I know they want to pretend that it's a big tent. And I've argued it's a very, very, very small tent when it comes to sports cards. It really is. And it's getting smaller day by day with the way that, this Tots Fanatics monopoly runs things, the way the PSA monopoly grades things, To me, it's not a very welcoming hobby at all. Tell them they don't want to hear it, but it's true. We've been talking about Mantle and Wagner prices being high since the 80s. There's the video of the dude bragging about his $30,000 value Mantle rookie. Bottom line, money has always mattered in the hobby. The way it's ran is what's changed. Not a fan of the amount of predatory practice in the hobby today. No issue with people making money from highly sought after collectibles, though. Okay. Well, that's more kind of this take of gaslighting, Money didn't matter as much in the 1980s or 90s as it does now. Like when I look at sports cards now, I almost feel like it's like polo or professional golf. You have to really be wealthy, or you have to have these kind of exclusive ties. And if you don't, you're just someone out there who is struggling in this hobby. And it shouldn't be that way. So, there's no shortage of people, gaslighting us in this hobby. And here's another post from this guy, and this came out, just August 4th. My 10 observations after 3 days at the National. So, obviously he's at the National. To me, I'm at a point to where I go, if you go to the National, I feel like you're part of the cult, regardless, if you want to pretend you are or if you want to pretend you're not. My 10 observations after 3 days at the National. The hobby is growing fast. It's literally bursting at the seams. Yes, the growth is pushing some people out, but for every person leaving, it feels like two more are ready to jump in. And that's really more gaslighting. Think about what he's saying. Bursting at the seams, and the first thing he hops onto is, yes, people are leaving. Come on. There's a lot of new money entering the space. I heard countless elementary questions from people who simply want to participate. That can create risk, but it's also a strong sign of continued interest. Yeah. People who are testing out the waters. And, these people who are testing out the waters, I'm just not sure if they're going to like the waters. They're just kind of sticking in their toe going, I don't know. Still, I just don't see that as really, expanding the hobby. There is still real interest in goats, but momentum may be slowing. I had several conversations with collectors looking to liquidate their goat cards and move the money elsewhere. Is the top in for a while? Okay. Basketball was the talk of the show. Did Topps breathe new life into basketball cards? If so, I'm insanely bullish on football over the next 6 to 12 months. Baseball felt like a close second. Collectors are building card portfolios. The hobby feels more investment driven than ever. Better marketplaces, democratized data, and large amounts of capital entering the space are accelerating that shift. Okay, stop. Think of what he's saying right there in that paragraph. He starts it out. Collectors are building card portfolios. Really? Most collectors I know have been pushed out of this hobby. And then he moves into investors. The hobby feels more investment driven than ever. Better marketplaces, democratized data, and larger amounts of capital entering the space are accelerating that shift. Yeah. That's not about collectors at all. That's not about collectors building portfolios. That's about the crypto bros roaming on in and getting all the cash they can, and probably just like anything else the crypto bros touch, it's going to eventually go to shit. Like it says here, there are still plenty of deals available. I'd argue there may be more opportunities than ever. You just have to lift a few more rocks. Who isn't being discussed? Which inserts or SSPs are being overlooked? Which team is about to capture attention? Well, the thing about the National is everyone's talking about how everyone's focused on goats. So once again, what's he trying to hype up here? The part of the hobby that, people are losing a lot of cash on, I mean, give me a break. There was plenty of MLB lockout talk, but very little concern about its effect on the hobby. Personally, I'm a little more worried than most. eBay Live is pushing hard. I spent time with their team, and they are clearly going all in on live commerce. Is this their moment? I saw far fewer smaller content creators filming at the National, and at my last local shows. Has the rise of the small hobby creators started to slow down? The grading slowdown is pushing 9s and 10s higher. Countless people told me they aren't even considering grading again until next year. That should keep a lot of clean raw cards in the ecosystem and create some strong opportunities over the next 6 months. Those were my biggest takeaways. What did I miss? Well, honestly, when I read this, it feels like you're getting paid by the industry. I'm not sure what the deal is, but this individual really feels like they're tied in with the industry, say, over the hobby. All right. And the first comment nails it. Everything you mentioned appears to be all with the idea of making money, not necessarily collecting. I think that's the shift that's happened. And this is nothing new. COVID bubble is still pumping and influencers still influencing. Personally, I feel we're in dark times, and I do too. I know that you're getting a lot of people trying to pump up the hobby into something it really isn't. But anymore, I just really don't feel like it's a hobby. I feel like it's just like dealing with a bunch of traders on the stock market. You know what I mean? And then this is a great point. Kids, I've been over a dozen of these things and I'm starting to wonder if kids would ever retake a big interest. It remains to be seen if they actually like the cards or just the dude bro deals. Yeah. It's so different than when I was growing up, I mean, all these kids think about is cash, obviously. I don't care about the cards. Working the booth, Omaha Sports Cards entry level Otani was on fire, 1,500 and below. All ages and women were buying, not just large shops and repackers. Yeah, I mean, that's the other issue I have is, I see so much of people, always talking up Otani, and they always crap all over, say junk wax era cards or cards from the 80s or 90s, like people like me are just a big joke. And that's another reason I think that's a lot of people are starting to move out of the hobby is, when you sit there, you move into a hobby like a bunch of crypto bros, moved into this hobby. They sit there and shit all over people like me, that grew up in the hobby in the 80s and 90s, in middle class families, we could just barely afford what we could afford. They sit there and say our cards aren't worth any value. Then they want to pretend, oh, but this is a hobby that's welcoming to everybody. Give me a break, you know? So anyway, I'd like to thank my subscribers. Thank you for watching the channel. If you could give me a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it, since I'm still not monetized. And if you're a viewer and you haven't subscribed, if you could just hit that subscription button, it would really help me out. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. I'm out of here. Bye.